Imagine walking down Main Street. The man beside you isn't wearing a disguise. He's smiling, tipping the waiter, shaking hands with local businessmen. His bodyguards stand nearby. Everyone knows exactly who he is: Al Capone. Across the street sits Lucky Luciano. A few blocks away, Owney Madden is drinking whiskey. Bugs Moran might walk through the front door tomorrow. None of them are hiding. Nobody is trying to arrest them. Because for nearly 40 years, America's most notorious gangsters all shared one vacation destination. Not Chicago, not New York, but Hot Springs, Arkansas. Long before America associated Hot Springs, Arkansas with gangsters and secret deals, it was known as a place of healing. For centuries, people traveled to the natural thermal springs that flowed from the Ouachita Mountains, believing the steaming waters could cure aching joints, worn bodies, and weary minds. By the early 1900s, elegant bathhouses lined Central Avenue. Luxury hotels welcomed wealthy guests, and horse racing at nearby Oaklawn drew visitors from across the country. Beneath the polished facade, however, another reputation was quietly taking shape. Gambling thrived despite state laws, illegal liquor flowed through hidden back rooms, and influential politicians often looked the other way. When Prohibition arrived in 1920, shutting down legal alcohol across America, Hot Springs already possessed everything ambitious criminals desired: luxury, secrecy, corrupt protection, and a city willing to keep dangerous secrets hidden behind clouds of therapeutic steam. Prohibition transformed Hot Springs from a prosperous resort town into one of America's most valuable criminal sanctuaries. While federal agents chased bootleggers across the country, visitors arriving in Hot Springs discovered that little had changed. Whiskey was poured behind unmarked doors, roulette wheels spun late into the night, and casinos welcomed wealthy gamblers with little fear of interruption. Local political boss Owen "Buddy" Kavanaugh and his powerful organization built a system in which law enforcement often protected vice instead of stopping it. Business owners, gamblers, politicians, and corrupt officials all benefited from the steady flow of money, creating an open city where illegal activity was tolerated as long as it remained orderly. Word spread quickly through the underworld that Hot Springs was more than a vacation destination. It was neutral ground where America's most notorious gangsters could meet, relax, and conduct business far from the violence and scrutiny of cities like Chicago and New York. By the late 1920s, one visitor stood above all the others: Al Capone, the powerful Chicago crime boss whose name struck fear across America, became a familiar face in Hot Springs. Rather than hiding in the shadows, Capone walked openly through the city's finest hotels, including the luxurious Arlington Hotel, often surrounded by trusted bodyguards. Local residents recalled that he was polite, tipped generously, and avoided bringing Chicago's bloodshed into town. For Capone, Hot Springs offered something money alone could not buy: peace. He soaked in the famous thermal baths, attended horse races at Oaklawn, enjoyed lavish dinners, and held quiet meetings away from federal attention. Some historians believe he also used his visits to strengthen bootlegging connections and discuss business with trusted associates. In a city where influence often outweighed the law, one of America's most wanted men found an unlikely refuge, proving that the safest place for a notorious gangster was sometimes the one where everyone knew exactly who he was. Al Capone was far from the only underworld figure drawn to Hot Springs. As the city's reputation spread, a steady parade of infamous gangsters arrived seeking the same rare luxury, a place where rivals could lower their guard. Men such as Lucky Luciano, Owney Madden, Frank Costello, and other powerful crime bosses were linked to visits or business connections in the city, joining politicians, gamblers, and wealthy businessmen inside elegant hotels, private clubs, and illegal casinos. Deals were whispered over expensive dinners instead of shouted across smoky back rooms, and fortunes changed hands with the turn of a single card. Hot Springs became an unofficial meeting ground where criminal empires could exchange information, settle disputes, and build alliances away from the gunfire that defined Chicago and New York. For a brief moment in American history, one quiet Arkansas resort had become the closest thing organized crime possessed to neutral territory, hidden in plain sight beneath clouds of rising steam. Behind the grand hotels and elegant bathhouses, Hot Springs operated on an unwritten code. Places like the Ohio Club, the Southern Club, and the luxurious Arlington Hotel became gathering spots where fortunes were wagered, political favors were exchanged, and business was conducted far from the public eye. Roulette wheels spun until dawn, poker games carried staggering stakes, and private rooms hosted conversations that could influence gambling operations stretching across the country. Local officials often knew exactly what was happening, but as long as violence stayed off the streets and money continued to flow, the system remained intact. The city prospered from tourism, while an invisible economy flourished in the shadows. Every handshake carried hidden meaning, every dinner could become a negotiation, and every visitor might be more dangerous than they appeared. In Hot Springs, respect was often worth more than fear, and silence became the currency that protected an empire built without a single official sign announcing its existence. For decades, Hot Springs seemed untouchable, but every hidden empire eventually attracts unwanted attention. By the late 1940s and early 1950s, journalists, reformers, and federal investigators began exposing the city's deeply rooted corruption. Illegal casinos that had operated almost openly for years suddenly found themselves under growing scrutiny. National attention intensified during the televised investigations into organized crime, revealing how criminal syndicates had woven themselves into politics and business across America. In Arkansas, reform-minded leaders, including Governor Sid McMath, pushed to weaken the political machines that had protected vice for generations. Federal pressure mounted, gambling raids increased, and the comfortable sanctuary gangsters had enjoyed slowly began to disappear. One by one, the backroom deals unraveled, the casinos closed their doors, and the steady parade of infamous visitors came to an end. The city that had once welcomed America's most powerful criminals was finally being forced to confront the reputation it had quietly embraced for decades. Today, Hot Springs is once again known for its natural beauty, historic bathhouses, and welcoming streets, but echoes of its remarkable past still linger around every corner. Visitors can walk through the grand Arlington Hotel, step inside the historic Ohio Club, watch the horses thunder around Oaklawn, or explore museums dedicated to the city's extraordinary underworld history. The roulette wheels have stopped spinning, the secret meetings have faded into memory, and the powerful crime bosses who once strolled these sidewalks are long gone. Yet the buildings remain, standing as silent witnesses to an era when America's most notorious gangsters found comfort in the Arkansas mountains instead of hiding from them. Hot Springs was never just a refuge from the law. It was a place where power was negotiated with handshakes instead of headlines, where fortunes changed behind closed doors, and where history unfolded quietly beneath clouds of rising steam. Even today, those streets still seem to whisper the secrets they were once paid to keep. History often remembers gangsters for the violence they unleashed, the fortunes they amassed, and the cities they controlled. Yet one of the most fascinating chapters of organized crime unfolded far from the streets of Chicago or New York. Hidden among the steaming springs and rolling mountains of Arkansas, Hot Springs became a sanctuary where America's most infamous criminals could rest, negotiate, and disappear into plain sight. It was a place where luxury masked corruption, where politics and organized crime walked hand in hand, and where silence proved more valuable than loyalty. Although the casinos have closed and the empire built in the shadows has long since faded, its legacy remains woven into the city's streets and historic landmarks. Sometimes history isn't written where the bullets fly. Sometimes it's written in quiet hotel lobbies, whispered across poker tables, and buried beneath decades of carefully guarded secrets. And those forgotten stories are exactly what keep the pages of the dusty ledger turning.